Hi there, welcome to Roth Aggie Reviews. I'm Kobe, and today we're going to be reviewing a film series. Which film series? It'll be Paranormal Activity series. So, I have the collection of discs, of movies rather, from Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity 1, I'm not sure if you can really, take a deep look. But yeah, Paranormal Activity 1, 2, 3, 4, and the marked ones. So, yeah, I don't have the one with the ghost dimension, which is the newest and last part of the series. But, I got this one last summer, and I decided to, have them all so I could kind of really think about reviewing them. And once, the ghost dimension came out, I was really happy because I was really awaiting the series. I mean, I must say, I'm a huge fan of the Paranormal Activity series. And I guess it was bittersweet when, the last one came out because it was, finally we get to see it. And, the waits, we won't have to wait every year. It will be like, all the answers we're going to get, all the questions, rather, we're going to get answered. But at the same time, it was the last one. It was kind of like a Christmas every year, or a Halloween kind of thing. You'd watch Paranormal Activity movies. But yeah, I'm going to review the films. So, I'm going to talk about each film, briefly, for, chronological order. So Paranormal Activity 1 is with Mika and Katie. And this movie starts off with them being a couple, like a boyfriend-girlfriend. And they live together in a house, and these strange things start happening. A supernatural activity type thing. And then we find out that, Katie goes kind of off the rails, and Mika is concerned. And Katie kills Mika in the first one. Then in the second one, it's kind of like before the first one. We find out that Katie has a sister named Christy, and Christy has a child, and that the child was Christy's son was the firstborn son in the family of Katie and Christy since 1930s. And we have other characters such as Dan, which is Christy's boyfriend or husband. And we get Mika there too, and Katie, and Katie and Mika are still alive. People would think, oh wait, it's number 2. Wouldn't Mika still be dead? But no, again, Mika's not dead because it's a prequel to number 1. And we find out more about the mythology and the kind of things that are surrounding the family with the firstborn son. And by the end of the movie, Katie takes Hunter, which is the son of Christy. She takes him away, and they're missing. Okay, so now we're gonna get to the third movie, which is the first, really story-wise, is the first one in the series. It really is. So in this movie, we're back in 1988, and this is where I believe the series gets the strongest, in my opinion, because just the change in the filmmaking style. So yeah, the movie takes place in 1988 when Christy and Katie are young. They're very they're not even teenagers. They're I would say Katie is maybe 9 or 10 years old, and Christy I would say is maybe 5, maybe 6. But we're just brought into the world of the 80s, right? And the house which things are filmed in the story, it's like typical 80s house, and it's not screaming your face in 1980s, but it's when I go through my home videos from 1980s, which is before I was born in the 90s, but there's really the feel, the atmosphere is the same, and it's really cool how the way you did that. You're actually feeling like you're watching a whole series of home videos that are spanning from the 1980s to the 2000s. And back to the story, what you get here is that it's really clever how the found footage is played in this movie, because in the first one we have security camera, CCTV camera. No, actually we don't. It's in the second one with Christy and her son that we have CCTV cameras and security cameras. And in the first one, we have cameras kind of set up because Mika's doing like this kind of, well, I want to calm down my girlfriend because she's concerned about a ghost kind of thing, and that's how he sets up the cameras. So, in all three films, it's just brilliant. And in the third film, the reason why the cameras are set up is actually really, really cool, and it's almost like, there's an actual reason for that. It's not only superstition, there's actually a part in the movie early on that really triggers for a camera to be there. Like, it really warrants, a camera to be recording everything, and that's just, again, showing the strength of the movies. So in the third one, back in the 80s, Christy and Katie are, young girls, and Katie, the younger sibling, develops a relationship with, or starts a friendship with this entity named Toby that nobody else can really see. And at first, the family just says, oh, she's, what's the word? She's, creative, and, she has a rich imagination, and kids of that age usually, talk to, invisible friends. But then later on, we start finding out that there's, like, kind of strange things are happening when Toby's around, and then the stepdad of Christy and Katie investigates kind of what's happening in the family, and he finds out that Toby may not be like as innocent of a friend as initially have been thought by the family, and really strange and scary things start to happen. I mean, from the first three films, I would say this one is the scariest because it just really plays well, and the scares are not it's not that they're not jump scares, or they are jump scares. It's just that there's a sinister feeling from I would say halfway in the film. Now, number four film is about when when Katie and Hunter come back to the house. Not come back to the house. They are sort of they are being searched for because they've been missing. And with that being said, the movie is in a new location because most of the other films are in. Actually, all the three other films were in California, state of California. They were either in the Santa Rosa area, or like Los Angeles or San Diego, that part. But no, number four is in Henderson, Nevada, and there's a new family, a family that adopts Hunter. Hunter being, Christie's child, the firstborn male that was needed for a ritual for number three, as you know or may find out. So we find out really about Katie, because Katie's in the film, and Katie is like kind of the next door neighbor of Hunter and his adoptive family, and Katie basically needs Hunter back for the witch coven, for the rituals. She needs him, but she needs to find a way to actually take him away, because the thing is, I feel that as we all know, that Hunter had to be ready for a ritual by a certain age, and Katie couldn't have taken care of him while she was possessed or while she was on the run from the authorities, because she committed, murder or something, and other crimes, like multiple, because she was really ruthless in the way she would kill people. Anyways, so Katie, puts Hunter to adoption, I presume, and that's how the Nelsons, which are Hunter's adoptive family, they adopt him, and they're a great family. They have a daughter that really is not. Is not your typical don't care about my little brother type of thing. She's a teenager, and she's really nice to Hunter, and she treats him well. And some siblings, because I'm adopted, and I know that some people who are adopted and they have siblings who are biologically related to the parents, they kind of get picked on. And that could be really hurtful to a person, and that's not happening here. So they're a really good family, and they really look after the kids. And then basically Katie needs the son back, which is sad, because it's Hunter's now with a family that is not practicing witchcraft, or I mean, not that witchcraft is always bad, but I'm just saying they're not, sacrificing things and killing things, and now he's going to get brought back to the to the ritual cult or coven. and how that is done, how is Hunter brought back, is really clever in this film. There's this really quirky, funny, eccentric kid named Robbie that is supposed to be Katie's son. He's not actually Katie's son. He's just pretending. It's just like a pretend. So like they look more like a family. Katie, when she moves in next door to the Nelsons, and what happens is that Katie apparently goes to the hospital or something, and then Robbie has nobody to look after him, so he goes to the Nelsons and he starts being friends with Hunter. Hunter. I keep calling him Hunter, but in the movie, his adoptive name is Wyatt. But I think I'll just keep calling him Hunter because it might be less confusing because of the name changes. I mean, the storyline is long. So, right, we're getting back with Hunter and his new friend Robbie. And Robbie, he's unusual, for his age. And Alex, who's the daughter of the Nelsons, she really starts to realize that there's something spooky going on with this new kid Robbie, and then she finds out why Robbie really is friends with Hunter. It's because he wants to bring him back to the ritual, and there's like a lot of spooky things that happen. And the way the cameras are set up in this film are really cool because as mentioned before in other reviews, the movie really hit the audience level, the audience of young people at the time, through, because the cameras are, the film is recorded through things like, Xbox Connect and Skype and FaceTime and things on your smartphone and iPhones and that really hits with the at the time with the young teenage demographic or psychographic. I'm not sure what word to use with that, but and it really worked well. That I think this movie number 4 is the one that really kind of relates to young people the most. And I mean the main character in the film, I believe, is Alex, because she's really the one who's trying to protect her brother, and she really realizes what's happening. Her parents don't really believe in what's happening with the supernatural and paranormal until the very end. And Alex really drives the film, and really solid acting. And also should be mentioned that Alex has like kind of a boyfriend, or like a friend who's almost a boyfriend, relationship with this guy named Ben, who's also part of the film, and he's the one who comes up with having the smartphones and the laptops and a Skype recording all the time. And it's cool because a lot of young people would do that, and it just shows how young people can get creative with these things through things that are aimed at young people. And yeah, it's just it's a good movie, and it obviously ends with Alex, I presume, getting killed by the witch coven, and the witch coven takes Hunter. That's where it ends, and that's where things really get interesting, because now we're getting into the next part, which is the marked ones. But before we get into the marked ones, there was an after credits Easter egg in the theatrical release of Paranormal Activity 4, which was basically showing this Latino type store. Either somewhere in, I believe, Mexico, or maybe somewhere in Southern California, like maybe Oxnard or East LA, San Bernardino. And there's these two men who are speaking Spanish, and they're Mexican descent, and they're walking around the store that is like a religious type store, maybe with the Lady of Guadalupe and stuff like that. And it's you get the Virgin Mary and type stuff, and it's interesting, right? Because in the Easter egg, you're like, whoa, like what, I remember when I was watching it in the theaters, I was like, whoa, like what's going on here? I mean, it's obviously from Paranormal Activity, but I was really surprised. And then there's this lady that's comes out, and she's speaking in Spanish, and she says, this is only the beginning, or I don't remember exactly what she said, but it really was like, whoa, like, it's like a language change, and it was really cool. And then the men get startled, and they run out of the store. And this is where we get into Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, also known as Paranormal Activity Los Marcados, in Latin America, which was a huge hit with the Latin, demographic. And also, I mean, these movies have always been, really admired and loved by the Latino population. So they did really something. These movies are great by making the movies appealing to the audience who love them. So yeah, the marked ones is essentially it takes place in 2012, June 2012. So I guess a couple months, almost a year after 2011, which is Paranormal Activity 4, when Hunter is taken away by the Coven. So now but before we get into the marked ones, just there's one thing worth mentioning is that there was a debate on the internet whether the marked ones was like a spin-off or was it actually, was it a direct sequel from number 4, and it's kind of, some people feel it's a direct sequel. I kind of think so of Paranormal Activity 4, and some people think it's more like a spin-off. But it really depends, on how you view movies and how you, think of the storylines. But anyway, so the story is about a young man, 18-year-old named Jesse Arista, and he lives in Oxnard in California, which is just, I'm guessing that's Ventura County. So it's close to LA, and it's like kind of it's like a very highly Latino neighborhood, and he's basically graduating high school and setting off to like the summer of fun, right? Because it's like he's finally 18 and he's doing all these cool things with his friends. But there's one thing that's happening. Him and his friend Hector realize that there's this lady. Well, they don't realize that there's been this lady living with them in their apartment complex for a long time. That is, that people say is a bruja or a witch, and in Spanish it's bruja. So they call her bruja, and she obviously seems a bit suspicious, and she does these kind of like things that are that kind of give an indication that she's maybe a witch or a demon worshiper, something of that sort. And the movie really focuses on her for a while. But here's the thing that I like in this movie is that there's this character named Oscar Lopez who is the valedictorian for Jesse's class. And then after the graduation, Jesse and Hector start witnessing Oscar hang out with Anna the bruja, the lady who lives under Jesse and does these like witchcraft type things. And Jesse and Hector are thinking like, why is he hanging out with the bruja? It's a bit suspicious, and that part of the film really draws you, and you think you're like, whoa, like why is he hanging out with her? And then as we find out later, we find out about Oscar. But before we get to that, what happens is that Oscar kills Anna the bruja, and Jesse and Hector find out why. They don't really find out why he killed her as of yet, but they break into the apartment, which is now a crime scene in the movie, which is obviously not a smart idea because she was murdered in the apartment, and they find out that she really is a severe she was a severe demon worshiper, and she was doing some really creepy type things. And then we find out that Jesse develops superpowers. He can fight off thugs. He can do he can ride skateboards off roofs and and do great tricks. He can sort of lean off a chair, and he gets caught by something. He doesn't fall to the ground and injure himself. Like, he gets protected. He can almost like fly. He can jump and kind of like glide all over the place. So he gets these superpowers. And then Jesse runs into Oscar in the apartment where Anna used to live, and Oscar tells Jesse that he has the same superpowers. He had the same superpowers as Jesse had, and that that Jesse's possessed like Oscar was, and the only way for Jesse to protect himself is to kill himself before he hurts someone else. And then Oscar commits suicide by jumping off a church. And this is the thing I'm thinking about. That I wonder why the church, like why he jumped off the church. I'm wondering maybe there's some sort of like a biblical reference, like you should never commit suicide from a church or something. I mean, I don't know, but I just thought it was clever the way they did that. The movie is clever in so many ways. And then we find out more about how Jesse's mom, who died giving birth, relates to the coven from from Anna the Bruja and Lois, the witch grandmother from Paranormal Activity 3, and we find out really how all the stories connect, and that's why I believe it is really a direct sequel for number 4. It is not really a spin-off because it answers a lot of questions. Then we get to the point where the characters get into the house, and we find out about the time traveling thing. How if you build a special door, you can travel to unholy places. It's like Destinos Profanos or something in the movie, and they travel back to number 1, and that kind of relates. So the Paranormal Activity, so the marked ones relates to the number 1 Paranormal Activity, and that to me, I remember thinking at the time, like the cinema, was like that was really cool, and now I think it's cool too, but it's so I find it almost scary that that's how the things would happen, because it just makes you feel so bad for the characters, like because they must have been so confused with the door, because you never expect, like the last scene in the marked ones, the one of the characters is just so confused and so scared that you feel so bad for him. Okay, so now let's talk about the Ghost Dimension, which was released last year. So a good chunk of a year after the marked ones, because the marked ones was released in January 2014, and the Ghost Dimension was released in October 2015. And Ghost Dimension answers all the questions. It really comes back to the original format of Paranormal Activity movies, which is like in either the garden of the house or in the house, and we find out about how the coven to create Toby, the coven needs 2 kids, born on I think June 6th or something. June 6, 2005 or something, I'm not sure, and they need 2 kids from that year on the same day to be born, that were born, and they need their blood to make Toby, and I thought it was a good way to end it, but I just must say that I was just so sad that the movies were over, because I used to, from 2012 on, 2011 to 2015, I was always thinking about Paranormal Activity, and when it came to an end, it was sad. But I must say that the Ghost I mentioned didn't fail to amaze me. It was really good, and I hope they're because the thing about Paranormal Activity 3, there were so many things in the trailer, right? Like we all remember from Paranormal Activity 3 back in 2011, there were so many videos on clips in the trailer that didn't make it into the final film and didn't make it really into the DVD, and I don't think they made it into the Blu-ray either. So this is the part that kind of confuses me. But anyways, I hope that there's a disc made with all the hidden missing footage from all the Paranormal Activity movies, because that would really make it strong, and obviously would make a lot of money, because there are some fans who just need to have closure what really happened with all those scenes. But one thing I can just say right away, for those of you who kind of, were not following Paranormal Activity since 2011 or 2012, and haven't, and have been wondering about what happened in the Ghost Dimension. So I must say one thing: the house fire, which everybody was wondering about back in 2011 and 2012, it is mentioned. So the house fire is mentioned. So if you haven't checked out the Ghost Dimension, I suggest you do check it out, because the house fire is explained, and it's explained well. And before I stop this review, I must say another thing, that these movies are great in capturing the audience of a particular kind. I mean, in number 2, they capture the audience of, young parents who are concerned about their kids. Probably it's not the best movie to watch, Paranormal Activity 2, if you have, a toddler and you're already superstitious and scared of ghosts, because that would just make you very anxious. Number 3, people who are, in the 80s, people who were kids in the 80s probably would love this film, because the movie is set, with Christy and Katie being kids, and there's so many toys in the movie that are from the 1980s, and a lot of people would say, wow, I remember that toy, and, this and that, and a lot of reviewers on YouTube would love that part about the part 3, was that, they could remember having the same kind of toys as the girls did in part 3, and obviously the 80s was a decade that a lot of people have, a lot of people watch these movies were either kids or were alive in the 80s. Number 4, it was Skype, as I mentioned, and technology, and that really was for young people. And the marked ones was obviously for everybody, but really specific part of California, specific part of Californian Latino towns and Latino type families. And as people have mentioned, like the marked ones is not supposed to represent the whole Hispanic population, as people have said. It's supposed to represent a particular type of family from a particular type of town from California or LA. And those are the words from the cast and the marked ones, and it's true. So yeah, great movies. They're really good at getting people, a particular audience, to like it, and it really teaches you that horror can be appreciated by so many people from so many walks of life. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it here. Comment, let me know what you thought. Hope you liked it, and hopefully I'll do some other reviews today. So all the best and take care.